Is the NXL at a proverbial crossroads in paintball? Well, this week on Old Guy Paintball, we're going to start the first of a two-part series discussing the NXL and Major League Paintball. Hello everyone, I'm Craig and I am the host. And the NXL was born out of the ashes of the PSP and has been around for several years now. But one of the problems I've seen recently, and I'm sure a lot of others may have noticed, is that I think the NXL has hit a point of stagnation. I am not here to bash on the NXL at all. I think it's a fantastic organization, and without the NXL and its previous iterations of the PSP and the MPPL, paintball would not be where it's at today. But one of the things I've noticed is after a few years is paintball seems to kind of hit this plateau. And the NXL has been a really good thing for paintball. Some of the good things they've done recently in the past few years is, first of all, is they've adopted the Millennium series in Europe into itself and created NXL Europe, which has now actually made paintball a standardized worldwide organization. We seem to have common rules and policies and stuff, which has been fantastic for the organization to grow worldwide. The second thing is it's finally made the jump to getting us back on ESPN last year, getting us more national exposure, and just recently it's been announced that Sports Illustrated has had an article about paintball, which again is getting us more national exposure to help grow the sport. But one of the problems I've seen with the NXL in the past few years is it's kind of gotten to be a stagnated, flattened out organization. And a couple of things I want to talk about is some of the issues and ways so I think that can make it better and grow paintball even more. The first thing I've noticed is paintball seems to have kind of gotten into this little bit of a quagmire, especially in the NXL, that trying to cover everything at once. If you go to an NXL event, there's anywhere between 8 and 10 plus fields. They have a variety of formats. If you go on their site, they have 5-man, 7-man, 10-man, X-ball, traditional 5-man. It's really just very, confusing. If you go to an event, the fact that they try to cover so many divisions and so many formats, it takes a very large area to put on these events. And that's led to several issues over the years. First of all, the sizing creates obviously a parking issue, and that has been a complaint at several venues over the past few years, that there just isn't enough parking and people are parking a long ways away and walking up to a mile to get to an event. That just doesn't help the sport any. The second problem is that because of the size of the NXL and they only have 5 main tournaments, people's usually try to teams have a goal of playing a relatively close to home kind of tournament and trying to make the finals in the World Cup. And they even advertise in their generalization of everything that if you could win one tournament and the double points event of World Cup, you could probably win your divisional series, which basically goes from D5 up to D2. Semi-pro and pro are obviously different, but you could literally win a divisional title by just winning 2 events out of the 5 and not even playing the other ones. And the other problem I think it's had is, especially last year in Texas, terrible conditions to play in with the rain, the mud, that it was all but pro had to play. They canceled the pro event and postponed it until the Mid-Atlantic Open, but they didn't want to cancel the event because so many teams only play that one event, and it would have been probably a financial disaster. And not only that, but it would have been very complex on how to solve seeding and points for people if they would have canceled the event. But the problem with that is, because teams are so tied up into that event monetarily, you are put at a pretty good risk, and not just for the physical part of it, of potential injury, but your equipment was put at high risk. And you're forced to play in some really bad conditions that, if you're not a sponsored team and your equipment got damaged, who's paying for the repairs? So that led to a lot of arguments about how it should be handled. And I think that is one of the second biggest problems with the PSP is it's strictly too big. I would love to say that the NXL should try to partner with several of the more regional tournament circuits. I mean, there's East Coast, Midwest, West Coast ones, and try to have your tournaments closer to there. It does several things. First of all, it keeps the tournaments more local, which makes it easier for teams to get to and participate and lowers the cost. And think about it from this point. If you could get a 4 or 5 region event, then the top 4 teams could play in the technically World Cup finals for an actual title, and then maybe you just have a general division for people if they want to play it. But that would definitely help cut the costs down for teams that really can only afford to make one event a year. They may more likely be able to play in 3 or 4 regional events and qualify for the national one as opposed to trying to play in just one big tournament. The second thing the NXL has to deal with is sponsorship. And this will also tie you into next week when I do Major League Paintball, is one of the stagnant things with paintball has been is they try to sponsor within themselves. The vast majority of sponsorships the past few years have all been paintball manufacturing entities. Yes, they've branched out recently to some other companies in the past few years and tried it, but they're going to have to expand their sponsorship program to a larger base, unless they would cut down to regional, which they would try to get regional organizations to help sponsor the events. More sponsorship money does a multitude of things. It makes it better for prize money, which makes it better for teams that want to play in these events and travel, and it helps bring an influx of cash into the NXL to help fund it and make it into these more potentially regional or into even a better organization. So sponsorship has to be looked at a larger way of doing things. Because if you can't get the money, sooner or later, paintball is basically going to just price itself out for the average person wanting to play in tournaments. But overall, the NXL has been a very good organization for paintball. And without it, paintball would not exist in the format it is today. I mean, many of the good things they brought in the past few years is they've improved our video sourcing of paintball events. It was GoPro Sports recently, up until they acquired Major League Paintball. And they have every year improved the video quality and how it's been presented to people who want to watch the tournament who can't attend. Secondly, they've done a very good job with having Matty Marshall as a host. He's very knowledgeable of the sport, having been a former player, and brings a lot of information and experience to the broadcast, and they've always added in a few other people throughout who've had experience, and it brings a great source of information to people. So they've done a very good job with that. They've done a very good job with the organization of rules, policies, divisional aspects of it. So they've done a very good job in that area of trying to create paintball in a standardized format. And I give a lot of props to Tom Cole. It's not an easy thing to do, but I think trying to appease to everybody is one of the biggest problems with the NXL. Going back to how it was set up, that, you know, if they would streamline to just strictly one format, and it's fine if they wanted to branch out into other things. They have the ICPL, which they do the classic paintball with mounds and woods ball and hyperball. And if they did that with a 7-man or went back with an original 5-man event, I have no problem with them doing that. But trying to run a national tournament with the size and the scope that they have to do is really beginning to become very difficult for the NXL. So I would like to see them reevaluate that and make it so that, you know, it's fun for everybody. Because when you go to an event, there's not a lot of spectators in a lot of the other areas. It's like a lot of other sports in that generally the people who watch are friends and family and those scouting for a future match. And I can remember in the old days, if you look at some of the older videos, when they had a pro field, there were stands on both sides and they were pretty well filled. Now you go to a pro event, it's one stand in their preferred area, and I know a lot of people watching on video, but there just isn't a lot of public attendance, and that's something that also needs to be addressed. Without public attendance, the sport's just not going to grow. People want to see it in person and pay to see it. It's fine, but it has to be something reasonable. But I think overall, the NXL is on the poise of growing right now, and it could be the verge of having an explosive year in paintball, with more media coverage and more people starting to take an interest in the sport. And we are at that crossroads, and we can either continue to go forward and make it a better sport, or we can stay on our laurels and kind of be like, status quo. And I think if we stay there, paintball will again stagnate and not get the rebirth that it had many, many years ago and was a popular sport. And as for sponsorship, we have to start looking at larger national sponsors, especially if we ever want to be on mainstream TV. And I know one of the arguments people bring up is, well, we have to be careful about what we have. They talk about not getting alcohol sponsors or some other type of sponsors. But one thing people have to remember when it comes to sponsorship, every sport out there has junior or youth divisions in some form, whether it be baseball, basketball, football, auto racing, whatever it is. There are lower levels, and a lot of them, that is not an issue for them. So looking at large sponsorships that may not exactly be traditional is one way to grow the sport and bring in more revenue to make paintball fun and exciting. So in this week's episode, like I said, I've covered the NXL, and next week I'm going to do Major League Paintball. But I want to say that I support the NXL 100% and want to see paintball grow like all of you do. So if you have any comments, please put them below if you wish to, what's your thoughts on the NXL and where it's at. If you want to do something more private because you play in the NXL, go to my email and you can send me an email with a comment. And anything that's said there is strictly a private affair that I will not reveal people who, if they do send a private email. But put a comment below. And also, I have a poll put up about what you think of the NXL at this point, and that's in my community section, so please take a minute, go over there and take the poll, and hopefully I'll be able to put some results up here soon about how that went. So if you do like this episode, please hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss next week's episode about the Major League Paintball and how to grow professional paintball to even a better situation than what it is today. And with that, thank you for all your support, and I'll see you on the paintball field soon.